Good evening, everyone, and thank you all for joining us today. My name is Rashmita, and I'm the event planner for Microsoft Reactor India. This session will run over the next 60 minutes, including Q&A. But before we begin, please take a moment to read our code of conduct. We are all here to learn together, so please be respectful of other people's views, understanding of differences, being kind and considerate in the way you engage. The chat section will be open throughout, and we do encourage you all to participate. So please feel free to drop all your questions in the chat section. I would now like to welcome Swami, our speaker for today's session. He is an aspiring software architect and currently works at Applied Information Sciences. He loves to learn about new technologies, but for now, I will hand over to Swami to begin the session. Let me bring him into the stream. Hi, Swami. How are you?
Yeah, good. Hi, Rashmita. Good evening. How are you doing this evening?
Good. I'm doing all good. All good. Thank you. Over to you now.
Thank you so much. I think my screen is in share. Hey, guys, thank you so much for joining. Today is a lot of action with containers. So, how do we deploy containers and the motivation? Why do we need containers? And try different flavors containers on our local desktop with Docker and or any container runtime for the matter of fact, and Azure Container Instance and Azure Kubernetes Service. So there are a lot of things we'll be covering. I will take one quick minute. This is my main GitHub repository, Vishipylor, and this is the markdown file for today's session, and everything will be here in black and white. Okay, so Rashmita will be sharing you this, and at the top, if you go and see at this one, the learn modules has been given, and today's URL I updated. I'll check in that after some time. And one important thing is the entire playlist is here. Rashmita will also share the playlist and two URLs, my main GitHub repo and markdown file. This has got previous 8 episodes. You guys can go and watch. Okay, without further delay, let me start. I'm still a learner. I'm just tipping my toes in the waters of artificial intelligence. Starting yet to start on machine learning and data analytics, but quite a few couple of months at least I have been spending learning this AI and ML, little bit of ML, but mostly this AI services. I started learning. So first thing we will do is we'll look at the provisioning. We have seen quite a few times, so we don't need to see that. But at least if you want to see, just we can quickly go. We can click on create and look for AI uh, s- services, and you can see this AI services. This AI services is multi-account, which you can see this one. This is a multi-account, or you can go and select the individual services also, where you will get some of them. You'll get it for free, just for a trial sake. So that is the best thing to do it before you enroll for one. So this is the one which I created, which is in central India. And regarding the retrieval of endpoint and key from the portal, we will be able to see this here in the resource management, keys and endpoints. So it will be here. So anytime you feel the key has been compromised, we can come and click on these buttons to regenerate the keys. We'll be generating it quite a few times in this exercise. And there's one real-time scenario which we'll be seeing in 10 minutes from now. And also, all the time, it's better to store those in secrets.json and Azure Key Vault. So that's the motivation. Don't use it in app settings or app settings dev. Use it from secrets.json. Even if you're using app settings.json, put it as part of the git ignore and use the app settings.example.json so others will know. And for the Node, Python, and the Go, we have .env file. We'll be seeing that in future. So let's come back and start. How do we retrieve and modify these things? So let me quickly come back over here and shell.azure.com. I'll come to that. And this is the AI services, AISVC Central India 001. That's the name I have given. So let me come back to this overview. And right now it is connecting. I didn't hook it up I didn't mount the file share for this one, so I can't save anything. So I just wanted to use it and throw, but I'll eventually going to mount the file share. So let's create these couple of variables. One is the resource group name, and other one is AI services Central India. That's the name. This one, AI service Central India 001. So let me create do a CLS, and I just created those couple of variables, and I'm clearing it off. And then we can use this AZ command to get the keys. So whatever is the keys which you're seeing at this point of time, 092F and D8F9, we can come in here and go to the resource management, come to the keys and show keys. You're seeing 092F and D8. So you're seeing the same thing. So whenever you feel that the keys has been compromised, maybe the key 1 or key 2, I can come and generate the key 1. So it regenerates the key 1. So now 09 is invalid. You see this DFF9 that remains same. Sometimes if you feel the key 2 has been compromised, we'll come and we'll click on key 2. I mean, we'll enter this command to regenerate the key. So that's one thing. So we have seen section 1 and section 2. Now we are on to section 3, where we have created an Azure services and just wanted to see whether this base Azure service is working or not. So what do we want to do? So we want to go ahead and try the Azure AI services. We just regenerated the key. Okay. So now I don't have the latest key. So it says permission denied. So let me go here and grab this guy and come back to this one where I have the variables. I'll store that here, so I don't need to come and copy again and again. So I'll come here and I'll send this. So it has made a call. This is 3.2, where if you want to analyze an image, you need to make 2 calls. One call is analyze. So as part of the headers, you'll see that operation location. That means it did submitted this, and now the results we can get it from here. The location, it's a separate location. It gives the GUID as part of the headers of as part of the response headers. Now see this, all the places we are using the key which we have stored it. Okay, so now we saw that our base AI services, the multi-service account is up and running. It's working good. So now what we will do is we'll go to the next phase. So the next phase is uh, what is what is this containers? You know this now. I mean, since quite a few years, I started using Docker container back in 2024. Sorry, 2014. Hub dot uh, hub.docker.com. I'll log in into that after some time while we are speaking or while we are executing some command. So it's a container environment where we'll wrap everything and we'll deploy it to different places. Uh, and I have the Docker desktop as the runtime environment because I use it for my community service. I always use the Docker desktop. Now, the motivation for using this AI services as part of Docker. So you can see this one when you click on this link and come and see this. Not all the things, all the AI services are available as part of the Docker images, okay, container images. There are few of the AI services which are available. You can see this from the decision perspective. You have anomaly detection container, and from the language perspective, you have Lewis language service, and just get into that text analytics and named entity recognition, summarization, translators. From the speech perspective, we have text to speech, custom speech to text, and these things. From the vision containers, we have vision as well as spatial analysis. But from the vision perspective, read OCR, that's the one which we do have at this point of time. So if you click on that link, it clearly come and it shows that that is 3.2. And if you scroll down, we need this endpoint and keys. We'll come back to that in a minute. But if you see that, this is the latest one, 2022-0430. That's the version we are going to use it. And this is the container repo name where you need to pull that. And the motivation, why do we need to execute this as part of our local Docker container? So not all the time we might be going and hitting it, the Azure services. Sometimes you want to work local or in a secured environment, um, in your in your office premise. You want to work in that kind of environment. So we can have this Docker container on our local on-premise. But from the billing perspective, it needs the endpoint and keys. So if you don't have the Azure account or the Azure service account and its keys, so you don't need to have this container image, because it will not work. It will blow. So only if you have this account, Azure service, then only you will be able to use it. So as I was mentioning previously, I started using this Docker back in 2014, September 2014. So almost 9 years ago. I mean, I used it, and I'm not an expert. I just use it. So the motivation is we need to execute it on our local, and the Docker image should be backed up with the account. Account means like we need to have our AI service, multi-service account. You need to have the endpoint, and we need to have the API key. So that means the Microsoft knows that, oh, yes, these are the legitimate people. They have the account and they have the key, and they are using the containers or the images which were provided by the Microsoft. From the billing perspective, they need it. I mean, periodically it reaches to send the billing information to this Microsoft for this account, because even though you're using the container, there might be number of calls or whatever the services which are being provided. For that, they need to give the billing information to this one. And then and I'm not sure how many hits they will charge and other things, but they need it as part of the billing exercise. Okay, so let's come back to this one. Now, that is the motivation. Why do we need to have the local one? So let me pull this Docker image, and I saw a very big improvement in this image. I personally have seen when I used it in this same image or previous image which I used it last month. It used to bring in somewhere in GBs. Now it was around 900 or some MB, but it was pretty quick. So I saw that this is little leaner, the image. I might be feeling, but that's what I felt when I was redoing this morning. Okay, now is the time when we need those two things. We can't directly go and execute this one. See, I'll show you. Suppose if I try to execute this one, because I'm giving some dummy API keys and dummy endpoint, and if I try to execute this, so it will not start, because it figured it out that we are not the legitimate people, or we don't have the proper account or the API key. That means it can't bill us for the services which we are using. So you can see that it didn't create any of the containers here. So we definitely need the API key and this one. So what I will do is, for the time being, I'll come in here. Just let me go ahead and create the API key. We already have the API key somewhere here. So let's go and grab this guy, the first one, and I pasted it. That's the API key. And the endpoint, we can get it here, or we can go into that and get it. So I will paste this over here. So now we have both API key and the billing endpoint. Now what is happening is we are executing a command. RM means remove, and IT is interactive. That means when I execute this, the console will hold the control, and I will not get the control back. So as long as this is there, so the control will be with the console. I'll not have the control. So it has hosted in 5000. That means this is a Docker. This is a Docker port, and this is a host port 5005. I have some issue in my port 5000. I'm lazy to hunt it, so I'm using 5005. So the 5005 is a host port, and 5000 is a Docker port. So now if I go and look at the 5005, when I come to this 5005, it's showing the Azure Cognitive Services. It's Swagger itself. And I click that. It clearly specifies everything, authentication and analyze. And you can see that vision. You can correlate this with the Azure service, whatever we hit it. Vision uh, version 3.2, read, analyze. The same endpoint, except that the FQDN, instead of hitting the Azure service, we are hitting the local container. That's the only difference here. Okay. So now what I'll do is I'll stop this. The moment I stop this, and ooh, come on. So that will kill this container. I just wanted to show. In the meanwhile, let's see. Here we can see that. Okay, we are sending the signals, but it's not listening to us. Okay, that's cool. Now we are out of that. So let's use the second method, where we don't want uh, that to be in an interactive mode, but we wanted that to be in a detached mode. So let's come back here, and you can see that the container has been removed from here. The God, I'm a little worried about the name. So it has again created. Now this is the ID of the container, but you can come and see, even if we go into this and when you do an inspect, that's the ID. Okay. Alternatively, you can see that when you come and do Docker PS, you can see that few of those first 10 to 12 characters will come in here. Even I can do stop, and because this is the only container which is running, even if I can give 4F94D, it will stop this one. So we're not going to do that misadventure. We have a lot of good things to do. So now what is happening is, we know that it is submitting the metering. See this, the internally, this this container periodically submits the metering information to this one, because it has the key, and it has the endpoint, and it has validated that it is the legitimate one. So now coming back to this one, this still holds good because we are on the same port. And how do we know that the port, what we have done, this is a host port and this is a Docker port? Because once you go inside the logs, you're seeing that that is listening on port 5000. So that's the Docker port, and 5005 is a host port. And that's cool. And we have seen with the we have created interactive as well as the detached mode, and we are able to validate this one. I mean, let's see the same previous exercise where we did the analysis of the image with our local Docker container. Now this time we are not hitting the Azure services. So if you come and see here, I'll mouse over HTTP localhost 5005. So I again click on that. This is 3.2. There'll be two calls. So the first call we are submitting, and it has accepted. And you can see that that's running in the Kestrel. And I'll click on this. I got the job ID, where I'll come and I'll say that, hey, whatever the analysis you have done, could you please give me that? It's giving. Now the thing is that we are not anywhere. We are not using the uh, key. And here also you're seeing that in the previous case where you're hitting the Azure service, we definitely had to pass the subscription key. Now in this case, let's assume that you have created an internal uh, container and use this one key and ask the entire team to use this service. Even though everybody is hitting the same Docker container, they don't need to know the Azure key or the endpoint, but they have the service. They can use it. It gets metered and gets built behind the scenes, but that's the motivation. Like if everyone has to reach the same Azure service which was hosted in Azure, and a lot of people, they need to know the API key. Now that is the keys of the kingdom, and too many people knowing that it's no more a secret. So this is one of the motivation we want to give a service to all the team members, host it as part of this, expose it, and give the endpoint they can use and uh, use the services. Now the fun part. Now what happened is, I mean, we are simulating a scenario. Assume that someone somehow they found the key. Now the key got compromised. What is the key which we have used here in the previous episode? I'll come back to this one and I'll just print it. So it is FB9D. So let's come back to this one. FB90. That's the key one. So assume that the key one has been compromised. You see this? This is our current Docker container where we are having the vision image. So now what I'll do is I'll go and I'll regenerate. I'm regenerating the key one. Now FB9D4, whatever it is. Now that is invalid. It's no more valid. Now this Docker container image we created a few minutes ago, maybe 5 minutes. When did we create 5:19 IST? Now 5:24, 5 minutes ago, plus or minus here and there. Okay, 5:19 to 5:24, somewhere in between. So now what happened is the keys were compromised, and we regenerated the key, but the local Docker container has been deployed few minutes ago, just before the key got compromised. This got deployed, and we were able to interact with it. Then we found that key got compromised, and we went and we modified the key. Now what happens is, as we were speaking, that it periodically sends the information from the billing perspective. It sends it to the endpoint using the same key. Now the key is invalid when it tries to send every 5 minutes, or I don't know what is the exact time. I don't want to blabber something, but when it tries to send this information next time, it will figure it out that the key is invalid, and it will blow. We'll see that in a minute, but I'll show you how does it look. So you can see that after some time it figures it out. Periodically it will be sending the billing information, metering, and that's when it will figure it out the keys are invalid, and it will the container goes into invalid state. Okay, we'll come back and we'll look at it. Okay, So that's about the section 1, section 2, and section 3 is we saw that directly hitting the Azure services, and then we discussed the motivation. Why do we need containers? And then we have just spoke about the containers and how many containers Microsoft is supporting. We need to go and check some of the details, nitty gritties. Which version do you want to use? What type of Azure services has been provisioned as containers? We need to look at those. And the thing is that even though we bring the images, but if you don't have an actual account and the legitimate API key, you will not be able to use it. Okay, it's going to take a little time, don't worry, but we'll definitely see the failure. Let's see that. I'm a little curious. It definitely does. Nothing to worry. See, yeah, the key has been updated. Let's try to hit that. If not, I'll do a send. Okay, there you go. It started failing. So now periodically it tries to send the messages, and we'll see a lot of failures because it says that the key itself is invalid. We don't need to hit it, but periodically the metering information goes, and that's where it throws errors here. We'll come back after some time, and we'll see that. So now let's go and see the first version. We have seen that how do we use it in local Docker, and now let's see that how can we do it as part of the Azure Container Instance. So again, if you see this in Azure Container Instance, we can create it, and again we need the API key and the endpoint. Without that, it will not work. Okay, let's go and create it now. So I'll come back here and let me refresh. I already have one, but let's create a new one. Let's call it as 002. So I'll click on create, and container instances. Here is the container instances. Just click on this, and I will say 002. Okay, that's East US availability zone. I don't need it. And this is the other registry, and that's a public image. See this, periodically it is sending, and it is trying to send that billing information, and it is failing. It will do that. Let's keep it like that. We want to see some more errors. As a software programmers, we love errors, so let's keep it. Okay, I will bump it up. I want 8 GB of RAM, and I don't need GPU type. So the first screen is we need first screen we just need this one. And imagine, sorry, it's not imagine. Remember that the Docker port is 5000. External port could be anything, but the Docker port should be 5000. So the next we go to the networking, and here the DNS label, the DNS label name, and what is that I've given? Okay, ACI AI 102 dev 002. That's the one, and I'm giving this, and the port we should remember that is 5000. So see this, at least one port is required when public IP address is included. So I'm using the port. It's not 80, it's on 5000. Now the next thing what we have to do is we need to come back and we need to have these environment variables. So one of the environment variable is this one. I'll copy this. I'm saying mark as secure to no. So that means it will be appearing as clear text. And other two, I just want it to be little secure. So I will use the API key, and the current API key, whatever we are using here, is this. I'll come back and I'll put it here. And next one also, I want that to be uh, as part of secure. So I'll select this billing. I'll drop it over here and come back and get the endpoint from here, and I'll copy that. Okay, so the next one is this one, and review and create. Okay, now click on create. So let it start, and we'll create the AKS cluster also. Good, deployment is in progress. So we'll come back to this one. Again, we'll go back to the resource group, and let me copy this AKS cluster. And again, I'll go back to create and AKS. And you can see that AKS cluster is here. I'm going and clicking on AKS cluster. The resource group is this one. Okay, and I don't want the production grade. It's like a dev and test, the lowest amount of computing power. That should be good enough. And AKS pricing tier and node image, I don't need any of those things. I'll click on next, and I'll go ahead with the default one. Don't need anything there. Enable private cluster IP ranges. I just selected this because there's a small this thing, the DNS prefix that is there. And I'm not selecting any container registry because we are getting it from the public one. So I'm not using Istio, and I'm not enabling. We can enable just till the time it uses. We'll see some of the Grafana. It's a nice dashboards. At least, I mean, we will not be able to go deep into the weeds, but at least from a high level, we'll be seeing that. So we have created the Azure Container Instances. We configured it, but again, we are creating the Azure Kubernetes Services cluster also, so that we'll be able to deploy the same vision container onto that. So we have seen all these things we have selected. Just click on create. So let it go and start creating it. Just give me a minute. I'll have a glass of water and we'll chase it. Okay, I'm back. So let's come back over here and let's go to this resource group. And let's go to the first container instance. And I mean, this is the one which I created previously. And let's go to the logs. And we are seeing the same type of errors what we are seeing in my local Docker, because this I created last night. I created it, but I have changed the key. We simulated a scenario that the key was compromised, and we have modified it. So that's the reason it is not working. I just wanted to show you these things. And let's come back to the one which we created now. So I just clicked on that, and you can see this is the public IP address. This is the FQDN, and we can go and look at this. There's no much of an action at this point of time, but events perspective, you can see that it started pulling the Microsoft Vision container image, and it pulled successfully and it started the container. Now, from the properties perspective, you can see that the port is 5000, and here you can see that environment variables, ULA, the license, we accepted it, and we gave uh, it as no. I mean, it's not secure kind of thing we selected, but these two things we said it's secure. Now it's not displaying those values. So now you understand why did we select it as a secure in the previous screens when we were creating the Azure Container Instance. Now you can come back to, you can click on connect, you can get into the bash, we can do a deep dive into that, or you can come into the logs, and you can see the EULA notice as well as the API key and the endpoint, and it is sending the periodic information. It's because we didn't change the key now. It's good. I mean, if we change the moment we change the key again, we'll go into the same loop. So how do we access this? So now I can take the public IP and come back and hit it with the 5000 port. I mean, as I was mentioning, I have issue with my 5000 port. I'm not changing it. Another thing, what I can do is I can come back to the FQDN. I can select the FQDN and the same 5000 port. You will see the same output. Either you use FQDN or you use the IP address. The effect is same. So we did that. Now I'll come back to this one and go to the variables, and where is ACI? Easy. Wow. What did I do? That's local. This is AKS. ACI. Sorry for that. So I have pasted it here, and I pasted it here. Now I bought the fully qualified domain name, the one which we just created, 002. Now this is Azure service. These two are local. Now we are testing with the Azure Container Instance endpoint, and see that we are not sending anything, subscription key or anything in the endpoint. Now again, the similar thing, instead of creating a Docker container on our local, we have hosted it in Azure, so that, you know, and again there'll be a lot of security things will come into picture, which the infra team will take care, allowing this only within the organization and all those things, but assume that everything is taken care. So we just click on analyze. Now it goes to the Azure Container Instance. You can see that uh, uh, 002, it accepted, and we go to the headers, and this is the operation location is here, and let me grab the GUID of this, and again I'll go to the ACI, and inside this ACI, test this. So that operation ID is invalid. So this I created few hours ago. Oh, I'm sorry. That was the wrong one. That was the previous one. This is the correct one. No, you see this, it's able to communicate. So we did two things. We tried the Docker image on our local, and we tested with the browser. We saw the Swagger kind of the documentation, and we were able to test it with this. For us, the endpoint is very important, whether you're using the Azure services or the local Docker or ACI. And what we have seen the other scenario is whenever the API key has been refreshed, so those containers will be in risk. So the suggested method is to uh, put these values to the key vault and use it from the key vault. So now what happens is, whether you're using here in your local Docker container or in Azure Container Instance, what will happen is the keys are, they are getting it from the centralized location, Azure Key Vault. So the operations team will ensure that when they refresh the key, they drop the latest key inside the Azure key vault. So you don't need to worry and you don't land up in these kind of problems. Okay, so we saw the Docker container and we saw that Azure Container Instance. And now let's jump into Azure Kubernetes world. So let me close this and come back here and go back to the resource group. Ah, what is this? Oh, is it deploying still? Oh, if it is deploying also, no problem. We will use the existing one. Uh, so you can see, let's see that in what state it is. It shouldn't be. Oh, succeed, running. Thank God. Spot on. Okay, so you see, we are not touching the 001, and I think the 001 will also give the same thing. Just for the sake, we can come in here and see that the container. We'll see that. I mean, we need to go a little deep into the weeds. Uh, Let me come back to this one. It's the workload. Let me go to the pod. That's the deployment. And where is the pod? Yeah, there's a pod. That's a replica set. Just give me a minute. I just want to get into the logs of that. Yeah, live logs. If we see that, we should see the same issue popping up here also. Let's give it a minute. It's taking a little bit time, but don't worry. Okay. Okay. In the meanwhile, what we will do is we'll come back here and go this. I'm a little curious. It's taking a little time, but it will come. We'll see that and then only we'll proceed to the next one. Also, you can see the Grafana and the Prometheus, and these things are also I just enabled. Okay, so let's see this Grafana. I didn't do a deep dive into that, but just came in here. But I think somewhere the information or the data source is also there. But oh, this is okay. It's not. This is not the default. I think it should get it from this Prometheus. Yeah. Now it should get the data from this Prometheus because the Prometheus is the one which to which we are pushing it. I think we should see some of the graphs here. If not, we'll come back and look at it in future session. But let's stick to the game plan. Oh, geez, it's taking this much time. Ah, come on. So we'll see this events. No, not events. We want to see this logs. Let's wait a minute. Let's give it a minute. I just love to see the logs from here because the same kind of things what we are validating on our local, and we did it the same thing in Azure Container Instance. I want to do it here also. We'll give a max of 1 minute. If it doesn't work, then we'll stop and we'll go back to deploying the service, the same one. Okay, I'll leave it there and we'll come back to. I just wanted to waste time, so I just wanted to see that complete. That's the one. They're so sad. Yeah, I told, isn't it? This is the one. Uh, that is the reason it is not working. I mean, if you give the URL, I need to search where that is, then it gives a nice, beautiful dashboards here. Okay, let's nuke this and come back over here. Let's leave it as it is. It will come eventually. So let's go back to this one, the Kubernetes cluster, whatever we created. Now we don't have the service and ingress. We'll look at that for a minute, and then we'll deploy. So we have the workloads which we have seen. We have the deployments, pods, replica set, stateful, and all those things are available. So if you come and see that, we don't have any service and there are no external IPs. So we'll come back to the overview of this and click on connect, and let me execute this command. So uh, okay, before that I want to show something else. In our local Docker, if you come and click on this one, in the Kubernetes context, you'll see that Docker desktop and AKS AI 102 dev 001, that which I created last night. So right now, last night or this morning, I just created it. So this one, whatever we are adding now, is not there in the current context. So I just set the subscription, and then the next command I have to execute is get this credentials. So now I can execute this credentials. So what is happening is now it brings the latest Kubernetes credentials and adds into the kube config. Now I can come in here, right mouse click, and context. You see this? Previously it was, this was checked in, the 001. Now the current context is 002. That means if I, whatever commands I execute now, kube control get pods, or whatever I execute, it goes to the uh, to the 002 cluster. Okay, so that's about how do we connect. Now we'll spend a little bit of time and see what did we cover. We have covered this completely, and we saw we have created the Kubernetes cluster. We didn't do anything, and we have the file, the service file. So I'll come in here, and this is the service file which I've given here in the documentation, except that in the same folder you will have it, except that the endpoint and keys I didn't put it, but the key, it's all there. So now let's wantedly execute that uh, with the wrong, this one, uh, kube control apply with the deployment YAML. So it said that it did a deployment and a service also created. So let's go back there. I mean, it will not work because we didn't give it what it needs to make it work. Just wanted to show that it will be in the what? Okay, you see that this is what I wanted to show that. Now I'm very happy. So we saw this in our local Docker. We saw this in Azure Container Instance. Now we are seeing the same in Azure Kubernetes Service. I'm happy. So let's come back and see this. This is not I wanted, not what I wanted to see. I wanted to see an error. Oh, there you go. I'm very happy now. So that's the public IP. So let's click on the service, and we came here, and let's go back to the workloads, and let's come back to the replica set, and inside this replica set I can click on that and come back to the live logs. Here I can click on that, and the same thing will be able to see that. So not much of a fun, but this is a different case. The first case is the service has been deployed to the Azure Kubernetes service, and then the key was compromised and the key got refreshed, and we are using the key directly, not reading it from the key vault. So that's a problem. So you can see that it's crashing just because the key was not correct. So let's come back here and let's kill this. uh, I'll nuke that. That's done. So what I'll do is I'll come back over here and real quick I'll go and grab this guy and come back and update this. Okay. And again, come back to this one, get the endpoint, Kubernetes service, and Azure AI service. I copied that and I'm pasting it here. So you can see that it's not a big one, it's raw crude one. Just like I just created a spec, a replica, and container, I'm reading the same public container which we are using it, and the port, container port is 5000. The same parameters which we are using in our local Docker or ACI are here in the Kubernetes. ULA, the license, the billing, and the key, and the resource limit, and then service. It's pretty simple. What is the host port versus the target port is 5000. That's it. Nothing big. It's just a simple hello world kind of YAML file. Now we deployed it. Now let's quickly come back to the Kubernetes. Let's go back to the workloads and let me do a refresh. Now that workload is in green. Previously it was in orange. Now it is in green. I'll come back here and that's also green. All is well. I just click on this. So it goes to that's the public IP. Come on. Just give it a minute. Okay, there you go. So we saw that the IP, public IP address of the service, we are able to hit that same service description. We are able to, we can go deep into the weeds. We'll see the same thing. Now I will go and grab the IP address, come back to the Postman. I'll close all the previous one for the ACI and AKS. That's the guy. I will remove that, copy and paste it. Okay. Now we'll come back to the AKS. Now click on this. Now the request is going to the Azure Kubernetes cluster and it accepted the job and the operation location is here, and copy that and come back to this one and change the GUID, and there you go. So let's me come back to this. Just the post calls will do it. Okay, the key was wrong because we changed the key. Then I didn't update that piece here. Yeah, this one. Yeah. Let me update that. Come back to this. Okay, there you go. It accepted. So we tried quite a few things. So we saw how do we execute or work with the Azure service, particularly on the Vision OCR. and then we spoke about few of the best practices to store it in the secret JSON, not to use app settings. Even if you're using app settings, block it in your git ignore and use example.settings. Just other team members or the operations team, they should know that what all the configuration values. And Node.js, Python, and Golang folks will use env. And we saw that how do we retrieve the keys and how do we update that. And then we verified with the postman. We spoke about the container and the motivation to have images working, but still we need to have the service and the original key legit. And we created in the interactive mode and the detached mode. And we saw that what happens. We tested with the browser, we tested with the postman, and we also tested what happens if the keys are regenerated. So the containers will fail, and we replicated the same thing in Azure Container Instance. And we tried the same three things, and we created the Kubernetes cluster live, and we tried that. And also we went deep into the weeds of the Azure Kubernetes cluster to see the similar failure logs. So that's it from my side. Hope you guys have enjoyed and learned something new. Thank you so much. Back to you, Rashmita.
Thank you, Swami, so much for hosting another session. I'm not sure if you have answered this question, but we do have one question. I'll
Oh yeah.
just bring that up for you.
Mm.
Can
Oh,
you see the
okay.
question?
Oh, okay, okay. I understood. Uh, so see this, whether it is the container instance or ACI or AKS, uh, that's a little broader question, but I will try to uh, do my level. But just could you please flash my screen again?
Just share one more time. It's not there.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. I'm sharing it. I did the share. Yes. See this, the choosing between the containers, that is something which you want to test it on your local box. So in this case we will use this. And also the container itself is getting deployed. So the first piece container, when I'm speaking about the container, or uh, I'm assuming that we are talking about the Docker containers and you want to test it on the Docker uh, runtime. I mean the container runtime, maybe the Podman or the Docker or whatever the container environment. So that's the separate piece. But when we are trying to host it in Azure, it could be the it could be the Azure Container Instance, or it could be the Kubernetes service. Okay. So the thing is that whether you want like a PaaS one, if you see that platform as a service versus you want to manage it. Now, how much percentage of security, how much percentage of logging, and how much percentage of control you want it on the resource group, on the underlying infrastructure, that differs. If you see that simple, if you ask, uh, uh, both are managed, but here ACI is the PaaS one. And one more thing is, I this is my personal choice. Again, I'm telling, this is my personal choice. Uh, I If it is a smaller workload and the less number of traffic is coming, I generally use the ACI. And again, you have seen that even ACI has got a lot of built-in analytics and other things which are coming in. We saw there. And if you need a full-fledged Kubernetes cluster, a bigger uh, mid-range to enterprise-grade apps, I would go ahead with AKS. That's my personal choice. Back to you, Rashmita.
thank you so much, Swami, for hosting another session, and thank you all for joining us today. Please visit Microsoft Reactor website for more upcoming sessions filled with additional resources to take your learning further. Thank you all once again, and enjoy the rest of your day.